Triggers, Creating Behavior That Lasts, Becoming the Person You Want to Be, by Marshall Goldsmith and Mark Ryder. Picture this. Phil's having a regular Saturday morning in his basement when suddenly he trips. He's tumbling down the stairs, and for a few heart-stopping seconds, this weird tingling shoots through his arms and shoulders. He's convinced he's paralyzed. He's completely alone. His wife and kids are out somewhere. He manages to sit up, head pounding like crazy, and fumbles for his phone to call for help. But as he's scrolling through his contacts, this awful, sinking feeling hits him. He doesn't have a single friend close by that he'd feel okay calling in a real emergency. He barely even waves to his neighbors. So reluctantly, he finds the number for a couple down the street and dials. A woman named Kay picks up, someone he's literally only ever nodded to on the sidewalk. He explains what happened, and without hesitating for even a second, she rushes over. She finds him in the basement, helps him up, drives him to the hospital, and stays with him for the next 5 hours. The doctors tell Phil he's got a concussion, but he'll be fine. He's lucky. But later that day, resting in his quiet house, it's not just gratitude he's feeling. He's thinking about Kay's incredible, selfless kindness. And for the first time in years, he really looks at how he's been living his life and tells himself something that changes everything. I need to get better at making friends. Not just for emergencies, he wants to become more like Kay. That moment, that single painful fall, was a trigger. It completely reshaped how he saw his life. And that's exactly what we're diving into today with Triggers, by legendary executive coach Marshall Goldsmith. This guy has spent over 35 years helping the world's most powerful leaders bridge the gap between who they are and who they want to be. What he's discovered is that our lives are just this constant stream of triggers, people, events, circumstances that push and pull us in directions we never meant to go. We all have this vision of our best self, more patient, more disciplined, kinder, healthier, but somehow, day after day, we fall short. By the end of our time together, you're going to understand the invisible forces constantly sabotaging your best intentions. You'll see why willpower alone isn't enough, why your environment is secretly your biggest enemy, and most importantly, you'll learn a surprisingly simple daily practice that can actually help you start becoming the person you truly want to be. Ever notice there are two different versions of you living in your head? There's the one who wakes up in the morning full of ambition. This is the planner. The planner decides, today I'm eating healthy, I'm being patient with my family, I'm finishing that big project, and I'm definitely hitting the gym after work. The planner is confident, motivated, and has this great strategy mapped out. But then, as the day unfolds, another version takes over. This is the doer. And the doer has to actually live in the real world. The doer gets that annoying email from a coworker. The doer smells fresh-baked cookies in the break room. The doer gets stuck in traffic and drags home exhausted. By the end of the day, the planner's beautiful strategy is completely wrecked. The gym is forgotten, there's a pizza on the way, and you've snapped at someone you love. This is the central human struggle that Marshall Goldsmith identifies. We are, he says, superior planners but inferior doers. And the reason the doer fails so often is because it faces our greatest and most underestimated enemy, our environment. When Goldsmith talks about environment, he doesn't just mean your office or your house. He treats the environment like a living, breathing character in your life story. And, most of the time, it's the villain. It's this non-stop triggering machine, constantly at war with your plans. Think about it. You can be the calmest person in the world, but put yourself behind the wheel on a crowded freeway surrounded by impatient drivers, and suddenly you're filled with road rage. It's not that you're a terrible person. It's that this environment of impatience and hostility has temporarily changed you. Or consider Jackie, a lawyer at a sales organization whose job was negotiating severance packages. One day she had to handle the departure of an old college friend. Even though the money they were negotiating was tiny for the company but huge for her now jobless friend, Jackie found herself being incredibly ruthless. She squeezed every last dime out of the deal for the company, damaging a friendship in the process. Why? Because the competitive bottom-line environment of her job triggered behavior that, deep down, she really regretted. She behaved like a professional negotiator, she later said, but an amateur human being. This is the power of a trigger. Goldsmith defines it simply. A trigger is any stimulus that reshapes our thoughts and actions. A phone call, a comment from a friend, the smell of food, seeing a rival's success, these are all triggers that can pull us away from our goals. The battle is always between what we want short-term, pleasure, distraction, comfort, and what we need long-term. But the environment isn't our only problem. We also have these internal beliefs that sabotage us before we even start. Goldsmith calls them belief triggers. They're the stories we tell ourselves to justify doing nothing. The first and most dangerous belief is, if I understand, I will do. We read a great book or go to a seminar, we get the concepts, and we think that's enough. But Goldsmith says there's this massive, unforgiving gap between understanding and doing. Just because you know you should be patient doesn't mean you will be when your little brother is driving you crazy. Another is the myth of willpower. We tell ourselves, I have willpower. I won't give in to temptation. We see willpower as strength. But Goldsmith argues we constantly overestimate our willpower and dramatically underestimate the environment's power to drain it. He points to the ancient story of Odysseus, who wanted to hear the deadly song of the sirens. He knew his willpower alone wasn't enough, so he created a structure for success. He had his men tie him to the mast of the ship. He didn't rely on willpower, he relied on a system. Unlike Odysseus, we sail straight into temptation, thinking our willpower will save us, and we crash on the rocks every time. We also fall for the "today is a special day" trap. It's a birthday, a holiday, it's Friday. We give ourselves a pass. But if we're not careful, every day becomes a special occasion, and our long-term goals get sacrificed for an endless string of short-term rewards. Perhaps the most stubborn belief is our contempt for simplicity. I shouldn't need help and structure, we think. We believe we're too smart or sophisticated for simple rules or checklists. Goldsmith tells this story about how, for years, surgeons resisted using a simple 5-point checklist before operations, even though it was proven to virtually eliminate deadly infections. Why? Because they felt it was demeaning. This pride, this belief that we're above simple structure, is one of the biggest barriers to change. So if our environment is hostile and our own beliefs are working against us, how do we ever change? This is where Goldsmith introduces the turning point. The key, he says, is creating a tiny space between the trigger and our behavior. The sequence isn't just trigger leading to behavior. It's trigger, impulse, awareness, choice, then behavior. In that brief, almost invisible moment of awareness, we get to choose. We're not robots programmed to react. We have a choice. The challenge is that in these small, everyday moments, life's little paper cuts, we often forget to use it. The person standing on the wrong side of the escalator, the friend who one-ups your story, the slow line at the coffee shop. These tiny annoyances can trigger our worst impulses because we're not paying attention. To help us create that moment of awareness, Goldsmith offers this powerful mental tool, an acronym he calls AIWATT. Before you engage in a potentially negative or pointless interaction, you ask yourself one question: am I willing at this time to make the investment required to make a positive difference on this topic? Let's break that down. Am I willing puts you in charge. At this time reminds you it's about the here and now. To make the investment required reminds you that your time and energy are limited. Is this battle really worth it? And to make a positive difference forces you to consider if your input will actually help, or if you're just trying to prove you're right. To illustrate this, Goldsmith shares the Buddhist parable of the empty boat. A farmer is paddling his boat up a river when he sees another boat heading straight for him. He yells, Change direction. You're going to hit me. But it's no use. The boat crashes into his. Furious, he screams, "You idiot!" and looks over to confront whoever's responsible, only to realize there's no one there. He's been screaming at an empty boat that had simply broken loose. The moral, Goldsmith says, is that most of the time, we're yelling at empty boats. The rude driver who cut you off isn't personally targeting you. That's just how he drives. The colleague who interrupts everyone in meetings thinks he's the smartest person in the room. It's not about you. AIWATT is the tool that helps you see the empty boat and decide to save your energy for battles that actually matter. But awareness, even with a great tool like AIWATT, isn't enough. To truly change, Goldsmith's most important lesson is this: we do not get better without structure. He tells this incredible story about Alan Mulally, the CEO who saved Ford Motor Company from collapse. When Mulally arrived, the company was in chaos. He created this mandatory weekly meeting called the Business Plan Review, or BPR. Every single top executive had to attend every single week and report on their division's progress using a simple color-coded system: green for good, yellow for concern, and red for a problem. At first, the executives resisted. They were used to hiding problems. For weeks, every single chart was green, even as the company was losing billions. They thought Mulally's rigid, repetitive structure was simplistic and beneath them. But he was relentless. He explained the goal wasn't to punish people for red charts, but to help them. Finally, one brave executive put up a red chart for a major product launch delay. The room went silent. Everyone expected him to be fired. Instead, Mulally started clapping. "Thank you for the visibility," he said. "Now, what can we do to help you?" That was the turning point. Mulally's simple, unyielding structure forced a culture of denial into one of accountability and teamwork. It took all the other options off the table, the politics, the excuses, the side conversations, and focused everyone on solving problems. That structure, that simple discipline, is what saved Ford. So how do we apply this kind of structure to our own lives? This brings us to Goldsmith's most brilliant and actionable idea: the power of active questions. He explains that for years, companies have tried to measure employee engagement by asking passive questions, like, "Do you have clear goals?" When an employee answers no, who do they blame? Their manager, the company, the environment. The question itself invites a passive, blame-oriented response. But what happens if you change one little thing? What if you ask an active question instead? Did you do your best to set clear goals for yourself today? That simple shift changes everything. Suddenly the focus isn't on the environment, but on your own effort. You can't blame your manager anymore. The question is about what you did. It forces you to take personal responsibility. Goldsmith and his daughter, a professor at Northwestern, ran a study. One group of people received training and was followed up with passive questions. Another group got the same training but was followed up with active questions. The results were astounding. The active questions group showed double the improvement in happiness, meaning, relationships, and engagement. This led Goldsmith to create a simple, powerful structure for personal change: the daily questions. Every single night, he has someone, a coach, call him, and he answers a list of active questions he's written for himself. Questions like, did I do my best to be happy? Did I do my best to find meaning? Did I do my best to be a good husband? Did I do my best to have a healthy diet? He scores himself on a scale of 1 to 10 on his effort, not his results. This process is transformative because it's almost impossible to look in the mirror every night and admit to yourself and to another person that you didn't even try to do the things you claim are most important to you. To show this in action, Goldsmith tells the amazing story of Emily, a 26-year-old culinary school graduate who was over 100 pounds overweight and had failed at dieting countless times. She decided to try a 60-day juice cleanse, and her uncle, who knew Goldsmith's work, offered to be her coach. Every night, for 60 days, he called her. She had a list of 6 active questions, including, "Did I do my best to stick to the juice cleanse?" and "Did I do my best to exercise today?" She had to give him her scores. For the first 12 days, she scored a perfect 10 on juicing, but a 0 on exercise every single day. Her uncle pointed it out. A goal can't be that important if you ignore it for 2 weeks. That wake-up call, that moment of accountability, was the trigger she needed. The very next day, she joined a gym. You can see it on her spreadsheet. Her exercise score jumps to a 9. Over the next several months, Emily lost 111 pounds. She passed a difficult sommelier exam and ran her first 5K race. The daily structure of active questions and the accountability of a coach gave her the tools she needed to finally succeed where she had always failed. The process forced her to be honest about her effort and course-correct in real time. That nightly phone call highlights the crucial role of a coach. A coach, in Goldsmith's system, is the accountability partner who bridges the gap between the planner and the doer. They're the external force that ensures you follow through on your own intentions, especially when you're tired, depleted, and tempted to give up. For more immediate, short-term challenges, Goldsmith recommends hourly questions. He tells the story of Griffin, an executive who dreaded having his friends from New Hampshire visit him in New York City. He loved his friends, but he was tired of being a tour guide to the same old attractions. He worried he'd become grumpy and ruin the weekend. Goldsmith's advice was simple. Set your phone to vibrate every hour and ask yourself one question: did I do my best to enjoy my friends? Griffin expected the day to be a draining marathon. But something amazing happened. The hourly check-in kept him mindful and positive. After a few hours, he found he was getting stronger, not weaker. By the end of the day, he was on, quote, cruise control, genuinely having a great time. The simple structure of the hourly question prevented his willpower from being depleted. And this leads to the ultimate transformation. In the beginning, we're reactive. The environment triggers us. But if we stick with this process of awareness and structure, something incredible begins to happen. We start to change our environment. Goldsmith ends with the story of Nadim, an executive in London who was constantly baited into arguments by his rival, Simon. Initially, Nadim wanted Simon to change too. "I'll meet him halfway," he said. Goldsmith pushed him. "Go 80% of the way," he suggested. Nadim made it a daily question. "Did I try 80% with Simon?" He started apologizing, taking responsibility, and actively trying to build a positive relationship without expecting anything in return. Within 6 months, their hostile relationship had completely transformed. When asked later what he would have done differently, Nadim's answer was profound. "I wouldn't go 80% of the way," he said. "I'd go 100%. I learned that if I change my behavior, I change the people around me." He had discovered the final secret. When you commit fully to changing yourself, you stop being a victim of your environment. You become the most powerful force within it. You become the trigger. What I love about Marshall Goldsmith's work is its profound simplicity. In a world filled with complex theories about productivity and self-improvement, his message cuts through the noise. It comes down to a few timeless truths. We're imperfect beings. Our best intentions are fragile. And the world we live in isn't designed to help us succeed. The single most powerful lesson from triggers is that awareness is necessary, but it's not sufficient. We can't just think our way to a better life. We need a system. We need structure. The idea that we're superior planners and inferior doers resonates so deeply because we live it every single day. We know that feeling of waking up with a clear vision, only to see it crumble under the weight of 1,000 tiny distractions and temptations. Goldsmith's solution, the daily active questions, is so brilliant because it's not about achieving perfection. It's about measuring effort. "Did I do my best?" is a question that's both incredibly gentle and incredibly demanding. It gives us grace for the days we fall short of our goals, but it holds us ruthlessly accountable for not trying. And in the end, trying is the only thing we can truly control. His work is also a powerful reminder that the most significant changes we can make are often in our relationships with others. It's not just about losing weight or learning a new skill. It's about becoming a better partner, a better parent, a better friend. And the way we do that is by taking 100% responsibility for our side of the equation, just as Nadim did with Simon. When we stop waiting for the world to change and focus only on changing ourselves, we unlock a power we never knew we had. We become the trigger for the good we want to see in others. So how can you start putting this into practice right now? Here are 3 simple actions you can take today. First, just for the next 24 hours, try to identify one recurring trigger in your life. It could be a person, a place, or even a time of day that consistently knocks you off course. Don't try to fix it. Don't judge it. Just notice it. This is the first step of awareness. Second, tonight, before you go to sleep, ask yourself just one of Goldsmith's active questions. A great one to start with is, did I do my best to be happy today? Rate your effort on a scale of 1 to 10. That's it. Just see how it feels to hold yourself accountable for your own happiness. And third, try to practice AIWATT just once tomorrow. The next time you feel that powerful urge to win a pointless argument, to correct someone on a minor detail, or to complain about something you can't control, just pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, am I willing at this time to make the investment required to make a positive difference? See if you can let just one empty boat float by. That was A Journey Through Triggers by Marshall Goldsmith. We've covered some of the most powerful ideas from the book today, but I'll be honest with you. A summary is like looking at a travel brochure. It can show you the destination, but it can't give you the experience of the journey. The real magic of a book like this happens in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a simple phrase connects with you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time. If anything we've talked about today has sparked something in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning new information. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself and the world around you. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you something to think about, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.